In November 655 AD, two armies faced each other beside a river in northern England. On one side stood Penda, the King of Mercia, the last powerful pagan warlord in England. He was over 60 years old, an impressive age for that time, and he had spent most of his life fighting and killing Christian kings. No other man of his era had killed so many rulers. 5 kings had already died by his hand. Now he marched to battle with 30 princes and war leaders beside him, leading the largest army Mercia had ever gathered. Across the field stood Oswiu, the King of Northumbria. He was a Christian ruler who had watched Penda kill his brother, destroy parts of his kingdom, and humiliate him for years. Oswiu had tried many times to make peace. He offered treasure, hostages, and even promised his own daughter in marriage to Penda's son. Penda accepted the gifts, but still continued his campaign. He wanted Oswiu dead. He wanted Northumbria wiped out, and he wanted Christianity driven out of England. The river where the armies met was called the Winwaed. Heavy rain had fallen for days, and the river had swollen far beyond its banks. The land around it had turned into muddy marshland. It was dangerous ground that could easily trap and swallow soldiers. What followed would drown a kingdom and change the religious future of England. 30 princes died that day. In just a few hours, an entire generation of pagan nobles was wiped out. The river became so filled with blood and bodies that people later claimed men could walk across it on the dead. When the battle ended, Penda lay dead in the mud. With him, the old pagan gods of England seemed to fall as well. This is the story of the battle that helped make England a Christian land. It is the story of the bloody battle at the River Winwaed. Penda had been fighting and killing Christian rulers for 3 decades. He first appears in historical records around the year 628. By then, he was already a king and already deeply involved in warfare. He defeated the West Saxons at the Battle of Cirencester and captured their territory. In 633, he killed Edwin of Northumbria at Hatfield Chase, the first Christian king of the north. Edwin died alongside his own son in that battle. Years later, in 642, Penda killed another Northumbrian king, Oswald, at Maserfield. Oswald had been a deeply religious ruler who raised a cross before battle and helped convert thousands to Christianity. After killing him, Penda had Oswald's body cut apart and displayed his head on a stake. Penda was not only fighting for land and power, he was also fighting for the old pagan traditions. While many Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were converting to Christianity, welcoming missionaries and building churches, Mercia remained loyal to the old gods. Traditional sacrifices were still performed. Ancient rituals still guided the people. To Penda, Christianity looked like a foreign influence coming from Rome. He believed it was weakening the English kingdoms, and from his perspective, the evidence seemed clear. Every Christian king who challenged him ended up dead. Edwin died. Oswald died. Many smaller rulers also died fighting him. Their Christian God had not saved them. Penda believed his own gods had protected him.
By the year 655, Penda had become the most powerful ruler in England. Mercia controlled the Midlands. His allies ruled the eastern regions. His sons governed smaller client kingdoms under his influence. Only Northumbria still remained independent. But Northumbria was struggling. Oswiu had ruled there since his brother Oswald died 13 years earlier. During those years, he focused more on survival than on expansion. Penda frequently raided his lands. Oswiu tried to keep peace by paying tribute, handing over hostages, and even marrying his daughter Alcflade to Penda's son Peda. But nothing satisfied the old pagan king. In 655, Penda gathered the largest army he had ever led. 30 dukes, princes, warlords, and sub-kings joined him in the campaign. His Welsh allies also sent troops. Even Oswiu's own nephew, Cadafael, switched sides and brought his warriors to support Penda. Penda marched north with the goal of destroying Northumbria once and for all. Oswiu made one final attempt to buy peace. He sent messengers carrying treasure, gold, jewels, and royal ornaments taken from his own court. Penda simply distributed the gifts among his allies and kept advancing. Gold meant nothing to him now. He wanted Oswiu's head. With no other option left, Oswiu gathered every soldier he could and marched to meet Penda at the River Winwaed. His army was much smaller. His kingdom was exhausted from years of pressure and war. The only advantage he had was the terrible weather. Rain had been pouring for days. The two armies finally met at the river on November 15, 655 AD. The exact location of the battlefield has been lost to history. Most historians believe it was somewhere near modern Leeds, where a small river joined a larger one. What truly mattered was the condition of the land. Days of rain had turned the river into a raging current. The surrounding fields had become thick, muddy swamps. Penda's larger and heavier army would struggle to move in such conditions. Oswiu's smaller force might be able to use the terrain to their advantage. But Penda did not worry about the ground. He had 30 princes beside him, thousands of warriors behind him, and a lifetime of victories giving him confidence. He had already killed 5 kings. One more would change nothing, so he gave the order to attack. The Mercian army marched forward into the marsh. They advanced together in a tight formation, using the traditional Anglo-Saxon shield wall charge. The ground pulled at their boots with every step. Some soldiers slipped into hidden pools of water and mud. The tight formation slowly began to break apart. Some warriors found firmer ground, while others sank down to their knees in the swamp. Oswiu kept his army in position and waited patiently. The Northumbrians stood on slightly higher land close to the river crossing. They allowed the Mercians to advance toward them. They forced their enemies to struggle not only against soldiers, but also against the mud itself. By the time Penda's warriors finally reached the Northumbrian shield wall, they were already tired and disorganized. When the battle began, it was savage and chaotic. Shield walls slammed into each other. Spears stabbed forward over the tops of shields. Swords swung wildly at any exposed part of the body. Some men died while still standing, held upright by the crowd of bodies around them. The Mercians had the advantage in numbers, but numbers mattered little when soldiers could barely move their feet. Then betrayal struck Penda's army. Codiphile, Oswiu's nephew, suddenly turned against his own side. He had brought his warriors to fight alongside Penda, but in the middle of the battle, he suddenly pulled his troops away. Whether he had secretly planned this with Oswiu or simply lost his nerve, he withdrew his men and abandoned the fight. A wide gap opened in Penda's battle line where the Welsh forces had been standing. The Northumbrians immediately pushed into that opening. Penda's line began to collapse. What had been an organized army quickly turned into a chaotic crowd. Warriors who had been fighting shoulder to shoulder suddenly found enemies both in front of them and behind them. The Northumbrians split the Mercian army in half and began cutting down anyone who couldn't escape. But escaping was almost impossible. Behind the Mercian army flowed the swollen River Winwaed. They had crossed it earlier that morning when the water was lower, but hours of heavy rain had made the river rise even more. What had once been a difficult crossing had now become a deadly trap. Men fleeing from Northumbrian swords ran straight into the flood. The river swallowed them. Warriors wearing heavy chain mail sank like stones. Those who tried to swim were dragged down by the weight of their own armor and weapons. The current carried bodies away and pulled them into deeper water downstream. Some men managed to reach the middle of the river, but Northumbrian soldiers had already reached the banks. They stabbed at the fleeing men in the water like fishermen spearing fish. The historian Bede, writing about 60 years later, claimed that more Mercians drowned in the Winwaed than were killed in the actual fighting. The river became so crowded with corpses that people said men could walk across it on the bodies. All 30 princes died that day. One by one, the noble leaders who had followed Penda into Northumbria were either cut down in battle or drowned in the river. An entire generation of Mercian leadership disappeared in the mud and water. These were men who might have ruled kingdoms, commanded armies, and kept the pagan resistance alive for decades. Instead, they were gone within a single afternoon.
Penda himself died last. The old king continued fighting until none of his allies were left beside him. He was about 60 years old. He had been killing Christian kings since before many of his enemies had even been born. He had survived every ruler who had stood against him, and until that day he had never lost a battle. But he lost this one. The historical sources do not describe exactly how he died. They only say that he fell at the River Winwaed with his princes lying dead around him. Perhaps he drowned in the river that had trapped his own army. Perhaps a Northumbrian spear struck him in the confusion. Or perhaps he simply fought until someone finally cut him down. However it happened, England's last great pagan king was gone. As the fighting ended, Oswiu stood on a battlefield covered in bodies. For 13 years he had been humiliated by Penda. He had paid tribute, he had handed over hostages, he had watched his kingdom weaken and shrink. But now everything had changed. He had become the most powerful king in England. Penda was dead, Mercia was shattered. 30 princes who might have opposed him for years were now lying dead in the mud. Oswiu gave thanks to God. Before the battle, he had made a promise. If God granted him victory, he would dedicate his infant daughter to the church. She would spend her life serving Christ as a nun. He also promised to grant 12 estates to build monasteries. 6 would be built in Northumbria. The other 6 would be built in Mercia, in the heartland that had once defended pagan traditions. Oswiu kept both promises. His daughter, Elflade, later became the abbess of Whitby. She would grow into one of the most influential religious figures in English history. The monasteries Oswiu founded became important centers of learning and Christian teaching. From these places, missionaries spread Christianity across regions that Penda had kept loyal to the old gods. Mercia submitted within a few weeks after the battle. Penda's son Peda, who had married Oswiu's daughter, became king of the southern Mercians, but he ruled as a Christian under Oswiu's influence. He had already converted to Christianity in order to marry Elflade. Now he officially opened Mercia to Christian missionaries. The old pagan temples were destroyed, sacred groves were cut down, statues of the gods Woden and Thunor were burned or buried. Priests baptized thousands of Mercians who had worshipped the old gods all their lives. Many did not convert because they wanted to. They converted because they had no other choice. The old gods had failed them. Penda was dead. His princes were dead. His army now lay as corpses in the river. Any Mercian who looked at the waters of the Winwaed could see which god had won. In those times, people worshipped the god who proved stronger in war.
Within a single generation, organized pagan worship had almost completely disappeared from England. A few individuals may have continued practicing the old beliefs in remote places, but the larger system was gone. The temples had been destroyed. The pagan priests were either killed or converted to the new faith. Many of the old rituals slowly faded from memory. Christianity did not triumph mainly through persuasion. It spread through violence and decisive victories in war. The Battle of the Winwaed pushed England firmly toward Christianity. The change did not come through sermons, it came through swords. Today, the exact location of the River Winwaed has been lost. No one knows precisely where the battle took place. Historians have suggested several possible sites, including areas near Leeds, Wakefield, or the River Went, but there are no clear markers, memorials, or preserved battlefield trails. One of the most important religious turning points in English history happened somewhere in Yorkshire, yet its exact location remains unknown. Even though the place is lost, the consequences of that moment are visible everywhere. Every church in England stands on foundations created by what happened at the Winwaed. Every cathedral, every abbey, and every small parish church from Cornwall to Northumberland exists partly because Penda died in that muddy battlefield and his pagan gods fell with him. 30 princes either drowned or bled to death in that marshland. Most of their names have disappeared from history. Their territories were eventually absorbed into Christian kingdoms. Their children grew up baptized into Christianity. They were taught to worship the very God whose followers had defeated their fathers. Penda had been the last man capable of stopping this transformation. For 30 years, he had shown that pagan rulers could defeat Christian kings. He seemed to prove that the old gods still had strength. For a long time, it appeared that England might resist change, but in the end, he failed. Not because the old gods were powerless, but because his army was destroyed in a flooded river on a rainy November afternoon. That is often how religions disappear. They rarely end because of calm debates about theology. Instead, they fade away through war, violence, and political power. They vanish when the people who believe in them are killed or defeated, and when the survivors choose to follow the side that has won. England became a Christian land after the battle at the Winwaed, not mainly through belief or persuasion, but through the brutal outcome of war. The old gods are silent today, yet the remains of those who fought for them likely still lie somewhere in the soil of Yorkshire. They rest beneath farmland that has been worked by Christian communities for nearly 14 centuries, and today almost no one remembers them.